straight from the bottle. Mike is drinking straight from the bottle.
Well, I think I was going to ask you how your day went, but that pretty much answers that question.
Brother, you don't know the half of it.
I feel like we do know the half. Yeah, drinking straight from the single malt whiskey bottle will pretty much tell us that.
I'll be sipping. But yeah, mostly I'm just going to stick to this fizzy water here.
Oh, fizzy water. All right.
Yeah, I have a couple cans of that left over from the Rehoboth trip.
All right. All right. Boys, we done dude it. We doomed it.
We doomed it.
We doomed so hard. And we are pleased at the result. And generally, this is finally the long-promised Dune episode in which we all have opinions about actual Dune.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, gentle listeners, prepare to be disappointed. If you've built this episode up, I feel that there is no amount of comedic respite or intellectual masturbation.
This is just going to be. It's going to be straight nerding about Dune for like 2 hours.
Yeah, pretty
it's
much.
so bad. I watched Jodowrosky's Dune and I took notes.
Oh
right
God!
Right on.
It's that bad. I don't know if either of you have seen that.
Only
the documentary.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to see the whole thing.
I've heard about it, but I have not seen it.
Jodowrosky's a lunatic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the world is blessed by his presence.
That's a fair cop.
It's my takeaway from that. Like he's one of those people you're glad makes movies, and you're glad has got the chance to actually make a movie, even though if it's a movie you're not sure you ever want to sit through. Like, do I want to watch El Topo? Do I want to watch The Holy Mountain? I kind of do, but I also kind of don't. It's like reading The House of Leaves, which I have also started doing.
Well, it's been nice knowing you.
A side note.
I'll be disappearing into the shadows before too long.
A side note, which you might find interesting, Andrew. So we were talking about Dune when I was at Rehoboth, and one of the guys, we had a link up to his home media server, and he pulled up this movie called, I think it's called The King, which has the same actor who played Paul.
Timothée Chalamet. Yeah.
As King Henry V.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's on Netflix. It's really good, actually.
It's good, man. Yeah.
It's good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really good. Okay, yeah. I was going to say, hey, man, knowing you as I do, this might be right up your alley, but you've seen it already.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's on Netflix. I've seen
that was good.
Once or twice, actually.
That was good.
It's good.
And I only just realized that his big breakthrough role was actually in Call Me By Your Name, which I also have not seen.
But
But that's apparently that was his like breakout
I've heard
role.
of this movie.
Was he actually 17 when he did that movie?
Probably, I don't know.
That dude looks 17 now.
He's a young dude, so
he does. He looks 17 in Dune. He looks 17 in Dune.
Like I'm like, how old is Paul? I mean, okay, he looks at. I had no honestly, as far as the age of the characters go and the casting goes, I have no problem with any of the casting with this latest iteration of Dune. I think they did a bang up job.
Mm-hmm.
I
certainly better than.
Let's put a pin in that for me for the moment, because I feel a tangent coming on.
Okay,
as is usual for me.
Lay it on us.
But it is a tangent. I mean, where to start with this latest version of Dune? Where to start? Like,
we all watched it together. We went to your house and we watched it on HBO Max.
Yes.
And you offered the house, and I brought beer, and we watched Dune.
Yeah.
And
my wife loved that particular beer you brought.
I was going to ask when she came into the room if she finished it off, and I hope she did.
She had a can of it either tonight or last night. I've left it in the fridge for her because it's a beer she really likes, and while she is quite a fan of ciders, beer's not as much. So that's
good. Then I'm glad it was one that she enjoyed.
Yeah, a beer that she likes. I mean, I guess. Let's begin at the beginning. It's a very good place to begin. The visuals.
Yeah.
Striking. It was fantastic.
Yes.
Villneuve, like he always has he hires great camera people. Like, they always have amazing cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't know what to think or expect going into this movie because trailers are not necessarily accurate to the experience you're going to get. And David Lynch's Dune was very visually striking. I'm like,
Yes, it was. Yes,
if
it was.
nothing else, a lot less coherent than this version.
David Lynch was at the disadvantage of having to shove Dune into 2 hours and 16 minutes.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not what he
even if
wanted to
it's-
do. That's what he had to do. That's what the studio made him do. It's not possible to do Dune in 2 hours and 16 minutes. I don't think that's his fault.
No.
Nope.
Oh, no fault to his. And I have seen one of the extended versions that he did, one of his director's cuts.
Yeah, there are
which is
fan
long-
edits of Dune as well.
Long as hell. And I'm going to say that I felt Oscar Isaacs as Duke Leto was actually a better Duke Leto than the old. And the old guy was good. And the previous Lynch's
See, I
one.
didn't like the Leto and Lynch's one. I think it was, who was he? He was German. It was like Jürgen Prochnow or something like that.
Yeah,
Something
I
like
think that's
that, yeah.
exactly it.
Yeah.
I felt that he conveyed this sense of European aristocracy.
Yeah, but it just made him feel foreign and not like a character, which is
Right.
a legitimate take based on the novel, because Leto Atreides the First is barely in the novel before he's dead.
Right.
He's actually is a much bigger role in this new film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you get Oscar Isaacs for a role, you kind of gotta give him something to play with.
Use him well, exactly.
Use him well. I'm looking at you, X-Men Apocalypse, which he did a good job in, damn it, but
no one cares about X-Men movies anymore, Kieran.
I don't even care about X-Men movies anymore, and I used to enjoy the franchise, not the movie, but the comic books when I was young. That was my shit. But
it's fine. It's fine.
Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho. Great job.
Which is the casting choice that everyone complained about when it was announced. People were mad about that. He was fantastic.
No, he was fantastic. It's also like, I think it was the first time, and this is going to sound terrible, but like when I read the book, when I read Dune, I didn't give a shit about Duncan Idaho. I was just like, okay, well, he's Paul's friend. That's great. Oh shit, he's dead. Oh well, that sucks. Sorry, Paul.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Yeah.
In the movie, I was like, oh, this guy's cool. He's like an older brother type. He really cares and is trying to watch out for Paul. And this is like the dude that Paul wants to be. I was like, that's good. That's good, like, character interaction.
Well, and it makes a lot of sense for people who've actually read the later books.
Yeah.
Because Duncan Idaho keeps coming back and keeps coming back and keeps coming back and keeps coming back, and it gets to the point where it's irritating.
Yeah.
Like, can we have a Gurney Halleck Gola?
Yeah.
Right?
Where's the love for Thufir Hawat? Come on.
Yeah.
There were other Atreides retainers.
I didn't know if any casting would really be able to equal, in my estimation, Patrick Stewart as Gurney, and Josh Brolin did it. He did a very, very different take, mind you, a different take on the character, but a very good one.
See, that's weird because I did not like Patrick Stewart as Gurney Halleck at all in the Lynch film.
I pretty much always like Patrick Stewart whenever I see him, so like I'm biased. Like I'm a Patrick Stewart fan, but like
Patrick Stewart is a Shakespearean actor. Like Patrick Stewart can do anything he wants, but for some reason, I just didn't buy him as Gurney Halleck.
That's fine. Yeah, I can see that.
I bought him on the troubadour aspect of Gurney, because Gurney's supposed to be like a warrior poet, a troubadour. He's described as.
Sure, maybe it was the pug.
And he also delivered the line about a mood is a thing for romance and something was whatever.
Like, and love play.
And love play.
Like, how about you? And then he like tries to stab Paul, and you're like, oh, okay, he is a hard ass. Good, all right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
It's fine. It was just a weird choice because I kept hearing him in that stentorian Royal Shakespeare Company voice, and to my ears, Gurney Halleck, he's a poet and a singer, but there should be a growl.
Well, I also
And that's why I like Josh Brolin much better. There's he's got to be rough around the edges. He's got to be like in the books. He's ugly, you know.
Yep.
And Patrick Stewart is just too like refined.
And in my mind, funny because in real life, for the longest time, he wanted to play Spider Jerusalem from the
Transmetropolitan.
From
Transmetropolitan, and he used to. And back in the day, when his wife was his girlfriend, he would like do things like jump up on the table and do a rant like Spider Jerusalem because he really wanted to play him. Really bad, like
talk about something unfilmable.
Yeah,
it is filmable, but we called it Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. God damn it!
Yeah. It's funny because I mentioned that because for a long time, because of the Lynch film, people said Dune was unfilmable. Like you can't film Dune, and
not in one film. Not in one film. Like
you can't do it in 2 hours. You need like 4.
They said Lord of the Rings was unfilmable. Well, not in one film.
No, you need 9 hours. And I think that's just because the story is very dense, but the story is also very basic. It's Hamlet in space.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So you just have to find a way to convey that visually so that people understand what the stakes are. And this film did that really well while like truncating and throwing out all but the most important scenes.
Like, I don't recall the Beast Raban very well from the Lynch film. Batista,
he's barely in it.
Yeah, Batista in this one, you remember.
It's funny because Raban, both of the Baron's nephews don't really show up until the second part of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Raban was the first planetary governor of Arrakis for his uncle.
Yeah.
And we get to see him depart at the beginning, which is a nice touch of this film. He departs with his Harkonnen retainers, and he's not really introduced until halfway through the novel as the Beast Raban. Right. And Feyd-Rautha comes in later. Feyd-Rautha is, of course, not even in this movie.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't think that he was, but I thought I could have possibly missed something.
None of these guys are really important until the Harkonnens take over Dune again.
Yep.
Which we led into in this movie.
Another thing. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say I like what they did with the Bene Gesserits.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were a lot more imposing. I thought both Paul's mom and of course the Mother Superior were actually were formidable, right?
Yeah.
And in the books they're all each and every one of them is very formidable. But I felt like in the Lynch movie, really only the Mother Superior is formidable, and Alia is going to be. But she's barely in the Lynch movie. But
what's there is gold.
But what's there is gold, right? Yeah.
I missed the one line from the first movie, Bene Gesserit Witch.
It's funny. That's kind of goes to my point about, the film streamlined the story very well. Because one of my favorite passages in Dune is the battle of wills between Thufir Hawat and Jessica, because there's this rumor in the novel, which sort of shows up I think in the Lynch film, that Jessica is a Harkonnen spy.
Oh right, yeah.
Leto doesn't believe it, but Thufir does, or at least he takes it seriously enough to check into it. And because of that, Duncan Idaho gets wind of it and is rude to Jessica. And there's this whole between a Mentat and a Bene Gesserit, just this battle of wills and wits between them. That's all above the neck, and it's just an amazing scene. And I don't think it's in the Lynch film. And it's not in this one, and it's great for setting. It's really a tension scene for the hammer's about to fall. The sword of Damocles is about to fall on the Atreides.
That ain't
And
no lie.
yeah, it ain't no lie. And this is them trying to like Lady Jessica trying to like get everybody's shit together before
Right.
the hammer falls is what's going on. But in a movie, you don't need that scene. It's a great scene. It's wonderful to read. You don't need it in the movie.
You got a lot more character building and culture building with the Fremen in this one.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think
they took the time with that, which is important.
Yes.
I wanted to go back real quick to what Andrew brought up, which was the an intrigue like that is something that you could do in like a mini series, because you have the time to actually have that character interaction. In a 2-hour or a 3-hour film, you don't have time for that shit. Like it's
Ain't nobody
literally
got time for that.
yeah.
No.
It's a it's a great it's great in the book, but like
Was it in the miniseries?
I don't
I don't
remember.
know because I haven't seen the miniseries.
The sci-fi
a while.
miniseries from 2000?
Yeah, I don't remember it being in there.
I don't
mean-
remember it being in there either, but I remember it was one of those things where at the time everyone liked it because it was coherent and the Lynch film wasn't, and it told the whole book and the Lynch film didn't. And since then everyone's like, "Oh, it's terrible." It's like it's got the production. It's got the production values of a sci-fi miniseries from 2000. For what it was, they did a really good job.
Exactly.
It did so well that they did a Children of Dune.
Yeah.
They did the sequel series. I
mean,
remember
let's-
because I really liked Aaliyah in the sequel series
I mean, let's be honest here.
because reasons.
When it comes to fiction and fans of fiction in a specific media, when it crosses over to another media, some people are just never fucking happy. And that's because they do not realize that nothing can match the theater of the mind.
Correct.
No.
That is one of the great things about literature and reading is that your own brain builds your sets and your scenarios and your sound, your voices, your music, all of that. And, that's a very individual experience. And so when someone goes and translates that to a different media like film or animation or whatever, it's not going to be what you had in your head.
No, it never is. No, that's 100% the case.
And like, as we've said many times, like the medium kind of defines how you tell the story, right? Like that's something we keep coming back to. And I think that's absolutely true for a story like Dune.
Yeah, you have to build the pie properly, and each medium has its own kind of crust.
I had a friend who
I will stretch this analogy.
I had a friend who had a rock band, and his rock band did a rock opera version of Dune based off of Lynch's film. Nate, Tiger's old boyfriend. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Nate's band
Wow.
did a
rest in
rock
peace,
opera. A rock opera based off of and he even had, I believe Nate had the big old inflatable like Harkonnen suit to go with it too.
That's awesome.
I saw him in it once.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing. Oh wow! I wish I could have seen
40
that.
out to that dude, but they did a rock. So, you can put Dune, I imagine, in a number of mediums. I'd be curious to see what an anime version of Dune would look like.
I was thinking that earlier as well. What an anime version of that? Because while I was watching Jodowrosky's Dune, that's actually a note that I have. Or maybe I had the thought that like his Dune would work. Yeah, no, right here. This should have been an animated film. Like Jodorowsky's vision for what Dune is would have worked as an animated film. Like even something like a Rankin Bass, like they did with the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit.
Sure.
Wrote a script,
yeah, that would have worked for Dune, for what Jodorowsky was trying to do for Dune. Jodorowsky's Dune is something that looked really cool and would have looked really cool, but it would have taken such liberties with the novel that people would have been most mad at this.
Yeah.
Right.
This was the version that would have made everyone mad because, and Jodorowsky's like upfront about this. He even has a line about this. He says, "To make a picture, you must not respect the novel."
fair.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this when we did our episode on The Shining.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
We talked about how Kubrick did everything possible to rub Stephen King's nose in the fact that this is not your novel, this is my movie, and both results are completely valid as art, because we've both read the Shining novel, we've both seen the Shining film, we liked both. They're both good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Jodowrosky goes so far as to make an analogy of if you respect the bride, you will never have a child.
Whoa.
Well,
I don't know if I'd go that far, but all right, boss. Yeah.
well,
if you respect the
how many
bride, you will
times has
never
he-
have the child. It's and you know, he's been married. He has a son. His son was actually supposed to play Paul in the Dune movie.
Oh wow.
Bronto or Bronte Jodowrosky was supposed to be Paul.
Huh.
And in Jodorowsky's idea, Leto is castrated and can't have children, so Jessica has to get a drop of his blood, and with the drop of his blood, impregnate herself.
Interesting.
Yeah. Jodorowsky did, and at the end, Paul doesn't defeat Feyd-Rautha. Feyd-Rautha defeats Paul and kills him. And then it's like Spartacus. They all become Paul, not just in a full-on they pretend to be Paul, but they all become Paul mystically, and then Dune springs to life green and goes to the center of the galaxy and creates an entirely new existence. The planet becomes a messiah.
Interesting.
I mean,
Jodorowsky took what is very Islamic and made it super Christian.
Yeah.
A messiah with a virgin birth who dies giving birth to the universe, which is not what Dune is.
No,
Paul's not
it's
a
not.
messiah. He's a prophet.
Interestingly enough, just like speaking of Middle Eastern influences, because I remember this came up in discussion while we were watching this recent Dune, very, very heavily. You could see the Middle Eastern and hear the Middle Eastern influences in this Dune. Very, very strong. It struck me more so than the Lynch one did.
Oh, definitely. Lynch didn't care about any of that, and it was not really in the sci-fi miniseries either. And
I just want to go and make a Eraserhead, goddammit.
Yeah. David Lynch's exact words about making Dune was it was a nightmare.
I believe
And he didn't say anything else about it. He didn't say anything, he just said it was a nightmare. But no, this film restores the Islamicism, the Islam to Dune, which is all over the novel.
Yeah.
All over it. Like the word jihad is literally used. They call him the Lisan al-Gaib. Fremen language sounds exactly like Arabic. It's a desert.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
the spice is an analog for oil, for petroleum.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
That works.
I mean, that's the whole symbolism that Herbert was essentially
Oil
laying down.
/coffee.
I mean,
Oil slash whatever.
Coffee.
It's oil works better because it's actually under the sands and you have to dig for it.
well, and it's also like, honestly, in modern life, petroleum is in virtually everything. Like, it literally
enough.
permeates our existence. Like, there's
That's true.
so,
Not only
It's healthy sometimes, microplastics, but
well, that's it. It's like it gets into the organism exactly the same way that spice does. And without the oil, nothing can move, which is exactly what the spice is in Dune's world. So it's totally an analog for oil.
Very true.
Without it, nothing can move.
Yep.
I also so something I noticed while we were watching the movie as well, Mike's reaction to the ornithopters.
Watching
yes.
Mike watch the ornithopters and enjoy the ornithopters was the best part of watching that. Like, you were geeking out so hard, and it was great to watch.
No, they were so fucking cool. Like,
They
they were super, super cool.
They were.
And like, that was actually I'm pretty sure that was a design that came straight out of the Jodorowsky designs, I thought.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
It did.
That's the part of the Jodorowsky movie that I've seen.
They definitely struck
documentary about it, rather.
The design of those definitely struck me more than they did in the Lynch movie, or even the miniseries for that matter.
Everything in the Lynch movie was so like gothic dark that it was hard to get a clear idea of it, which is why the desert images seem so. Everything
Grainy?
seems so grainy and unpleasant, and you got tired of looking at it after a while. Whereas
which is a good visual cue for a desert planet. Let's be honest, like, oh god, this bullshit. But I guess Lynch had to kind of do, because Dune's not that far separated in time, that movie, from say the first Star Wars, where you spend a goodly part of the beginning of the movie on a desert motherfucking planet.
Yeah. Sure, but I'm looking in terms of like visually, like the in terms of color, shading, like Lynch's Dune is much darker. Like the colors are more somber and more orangier, and it's just everything seems darker and more gothic.
Yeah.
Whereas this film, like the desert is very bright, like the sun pierces your eyes in this, which I think is more on point.
More to the point. Yeah, I was thinking his exact words actually.
And you actually sort of feel the menace of like the actual day because of how bright, and you're like, oh god, like how are they still alive in all of that heat?
Yeah, it makes you think of Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
Which is a film I rewatch on a regular basis because it's
wonderful.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
The Sardaukar, they go into a great deal more than they did in.
They got good treatment.
Wasn't that great? Wasn't that great? Because the Sardaukar in the novel are just absolute badasses. Like the Emperor's cream kill machine soldiers, Marines. And they're the thing that keep the Emperor in power, because no single noble house wants to mess with the Sardaukar.
No. And like the first like scene where you actually see them fight the Atreides, troops, like after they basically defeat the Harkonnens, like in that one battle scene, in that one scene inside of the fortress, they fight off the Harkonnens on two sides, which is impressive because they're outnumbered, and then the Sardaukar come through and just just wipe them out.
Yeah, and why that's important in the novel is because when the Sardaukar face off against Fremen, it's a different story, and the Sardaukar realize this and are like, we want Chris knives. We want to figure out what's up with this because we have never had to tangle with anything like this before.
And I think
Charlie's in the bush, man. Charlie's in the bush, and Charlie may not surf, but you don't understand, man.
Charlie surfs on sandworms.
Charlie surfs on sandworms, bro.
And I think Duncan Idaho even comments on like the Fremen are the equal to a Sardaukar in this particular film.
He does.
If I recall properly.
He does. He does say that. He does say that, and then it becomes true, and then we get to watch Duncan Idaho kill like 8 Sardaukar, which is dope, and then get killed by them.
But it's also like, it's one of those things where it's like, no, I don't think you understand how like insanely skilled this man is to have actually fought this many of them, stayed alive that long, and actually managed to kill even one of them, let alone 8, right?
Yeah.
He puts a dent in them motherfuckers.
He does. And he does. And he buys his Duke an escape, which is exactly what he would have done. And in this world is exactly what he should do, because the most fascinating thing about Dune, story-wise, world-wise, is that it's set 10,000 years in the future in a feudal aristocracy.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's pure space feudalism.
Yep.
Which is one of those ideas that is terrifyingly interesting. And they even use the old titles, like Leto is the Duke of Caladan and becomes the Duke of Arrakis. Like the Harkonnen is a baron. Later on, in the end of the novel, like Gurney Halleck will become an earl. There's an emperor. All of these parts are there. Although Dune also uses a lot of like Islamic titles, such as Bashar and things of that nature.
Yeah,
but it's space feudalism, and that all the aristocratic values come to the front, and that's not just something we do because it's cool space fantasy. It's actually what we have to do because we have to have a genetic elite in order to not have computers. Because AI is bad, and we don't want it.
Right, and I'm hoping that we'll see a little bit more about
The Butler
At least
and Jihad.
the Butler, the Butlerian Jihad, and sort of the
Thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of a human mind.
right, and
There-
I liked how they centered the politics at like sort of from the get at the beginning of this movie, where they're just like, oh yeah, no, the Emperor fears these two houses and is setting them up to, you know,
Two houses alike in. Help me out with this line from Shakespeare. Two houses alike.
Alike in dignity, in Fair Verona, where we set the scene.
Yep.
Yes.
So
Two
that's
houses
essentially
alike in
and it's like,
dignity.
no, we're gonna have them taking care of each other, and then we'll put our thumb on the other one, and
Yeah. And it's not just feudalism for the sake of it, just because we get to wave flags and have swords and such. It's also like, this is how the society chose to organize itself in order to forego this. We have mentats and we have Bene Gesserit. We have these highly skilled, trained nerve endings of the human organism, so that we don't have computers, because computers are bad. And that's a cool thing. And just thought why the spice is so necessary.
An interesting, and I think it's one of the ones done by Herbert's son. But there's a prequel novel covering some of the worst atrocities of the Butlerian Jihad that my boy Shaka was telling me about, because he's a big Dune fanatic, and of course he's seen the movie. And I remember he was just telling me about one of the Butlerian Jihad. He's like, yeah, man, this computer goes and does this foul thing. And the shit he was describing the AI did sound a lot like the kind of things that the AI in I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream does.
oh, interesting.
I have not seen that.
I don't know if there's any really good film translation of I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream. It's a Harlan Ellison story.
Very good story. Never mind then. I thought it was.
It's a very good video game. Now they made a video game that was an.
I thought it was an anime for some reason. Never mind.
Oh,
no, it's Harlan Ellison.
Yeah, it's a Harlan Ellison story. It is. It's brutal.
Mm-hmm.
It's brutal. Like it is Harlan Ellison on full display, my friend.
Okay, I will check that out.
And all of his foibles. And you read that, and when I say that the AIs from the prequel novel about the Butler Jihad compare to Am, the AI from that story, you'll get a sense of why that particular. It's like no more AI.
Yeah.
That. Nope. No more.
No.
Kill it with fire.
Cannot have that shit.
Just.
We ain't talking no Skynet, nuke the people, round them up, and do whatever it is they do with them.
Not today, Skynet. Not today.
Skynet is like Mary fucking Poppins compared to. I mean, the AI the AI of the Matrix is downright benevolent in comparison, which it actually is in comparison to Skynet, to be honest.
Yes.
I feel like we're building a continuum of evil AI. It's like, well, so here we have.
That's valid. Like you've got because Skynet is less benevolent than the Matrix architect.
Yeah. The Matrix AIs at least are keeping their creators alive, despite their creators going on a rampage to straight out wipe them out.
Not only keeping them alive, but like giving them a pleasant experience while they're alive. Yeah.
Like the first Matrix, we tried to make it perfect, but y'all motherfuckers can't deal with no perfection, and it kept crashing, so we had to make it flawed.
Yeah. No.
Y'all motherfuckers just cannot be happy.
We can't. That's true. We can't. We've lost. Where are we now?
We had been talking about the Butlerian Jihad, space feudalism, because you need that kind of social strata to have the kind of eugenics practiced in Dune.
Well, yes. it also relates heavily to the politics and the worldview, within the book, and then and therefore within any of the adaptations of it, because that's the literal foundation of the story so far, and now here's the story of Paul Atreides.
Right, and Paul Atreides is the apotheosis of the world that he's in.
Yes.
He is a messiah, but he's a genetic messiah. He was bred to be this thing.
The kumquat Haagen-Dazs.
That's good. That's good. And
that's the Harvard Lampoon came up with that, not me.
Credit where credit is due. And
they did a parody novel of Dune, which only thing I remember from it is the kumquat Haagen-Dazs.
Kumquat Haagen-Dazs. And where was I going with this? Kumquat Haagen-Dazs is all I can think of right now.
And then there was me and Mike's old friend Dougie, who was the queer-ass hat rack.
Right.
Yeah.
No, he's the apotheosis. He is the product of this society and its ethos. Because he's the thing that the Bene Gesserit have been like breeding among the great houses and the Imperial dynasty as well for generations. They were supposed to, like, Jessica was supposed to bear a child to the Atreides. That child was supposed to marry Phaedra Harkonnen, and that kid was supposed to be the Kwisatz Haderach, the thing that they've been trying to make, this guy who can see through time, because we've reached genetic breeding to that point where we can breed ourselves a god. And
you can, but should ya?
You shouldn't, is what every other good Dune novel says. You shouldn't do that because it will create great suffering on the part of the people, and also it will suck for the Messiah himself. He will suffer himself. And Paul Atreides, people like to go back and forth about whether he's a hero, whether he's a villain. Mike, when we've talked about this before, you summed it up very well and said that here's the hero, watch him become a tyrant. And he does, but he does so without joy.
Malice.
Right.
Or malice. He doesn't want to be this thing. He doesn't have a choice.
No.
He didn't want to be the Duke.
He didn't want to be anything, but he's stuck in this role that has been given to him, and he does as best he can. And the rest of the Dune novels are about, his son, Paul's son, Leto II, trying to undo what has been done. And he does it in the most possible extreme hardcore way possible.
Yes. Yes.
Last time I did a reread on the Dune novels, I read the first 3 and I stopped at God Emperor of Dune because I just wasn't in the mood for it. But I've read that one by itself so many times without reading any others that I didn't need to. Like, that's... Infinity! Oh, my mind just exploded, is basically what happens in God Emperor.
When I first tried to read the first 3 books of Dune, I was able to grasp the second 2 much easier than the first. The first I had to go back to, because I tried to read this shit at 13, because I was an ambitious 13-year-old. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that's not going to work at...
Hey, I could handle Heinlein, goddammit. I thought I was ready for Herbert.
Actually, I think I read Dune when I was about that age, 13 or 14 the first time I read it.
Could not grasp it for some reason. I came back at it 10 years later, made sense. But
yeah, you definitely get it better the second time around.
Sure.
Especially when you've got like a decade of like being an adult, or maybe not being an adult, but a decade of fucking, experience in there, because what does a 13-year-old know? Not a goddamn thing.
No. He knows what he reads and what he's done in school and his family life. He doesn't know anything else.
Yeah, exactly. What is a 23-year-old? Not much more, but slightly less useless.
You know a little bit more because you've done some stuff on your own at that age. So you have a little more. You've actually hunted for your meat when you're 23.
Yep.
Yeah.
What backwards Appalachian bullshit did you grow up in?
I'm speaking metaphorically, and you know it.
Maybe.
There's nothing wrong with hunting your own meat.
Nothing wrong with beating your own meat. Dick jokes, I got them.
Oh, do you? This is new information.
Yeah, end it though.
I'm shocked. Shocked.
And appalled,
This is my shocked face.
where were we? We were talking about Dune.
We were.
Right, genetic messiah.
Yep.
Paul Atreides becomes the tyrant. That's the rest of this. And the new movie, because it only covers the first half of it, only hints at that and teases at it. But it does pull something out of the novels, because Paul does have a dream about running around in gold armor. Although that might have been... I remember that also being in Children of Dune, which is a dream that his son had.
Yeah.
It's more of a thing that he
that's
dreams
right.
about, like, because he does that at the end of Children of Doom, but it's like it's his sandworm skin, because he morphs with a sandworm and lives for 4,000 years or something.
Some shit like that.
Yeah.
One thing I recall in this new movie that I don't recall being in any of the previous ones is you have the visualization of the Maudib, the rodent, for which the kangaroo rat, the jerboa,
The kangaroo rat.
for which he is named.
The teacher of boys.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's a nice little, that's a nice little touch there. I like that.
You commented on that when we saw it. It's like, oh, it's the mouse. It's the thing. They did the thing. And that's kind of the vibe you get from the whole movie watching it, is just, oh, they did the thing. Yeah. That's the thing that they're supposed to do, and it's there. It's in it. Hey.
I mean, one of the things, I'm not a big fan of Hollywood constantly rebooting, rehashing, and remaking shit.
Nobody is, but it doesn't matter, because that's what the algorithm dictates.
But there are some things...
Speaking of AI...
there are some things that they take a stab at, and either the technology isn't there for that, they're trying to make it too short of a movie, fear that, people aren't going to understand this thing because it's too complex, even though people have already been reading it and do understand it. And Hollywood executives.
If you've seen Star Wars and you understand what is happening, then you can probably sit through Dune.
Yeah. It's not that much more complicated a plot.
It's really not.
Space Hamlet.
Well, it's presented a little more complicated than Star Wars is.
That all goes to world building, and the world is built well because it's a novel that's ultimately about a world.
Yeah.
So,
it's also better. I feel that Dune. Now, Star Wars is supposed to look lived in, but Dune looks a lot more lived in.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't feel like there was any dwelling or structure or anything that we see in the entire film that had not already stood for
hundreds of years.
I mean, I have a hard time believing any of the Ornithopters were under a century old, and they were well done. But you still get this sense of like everything has a fine layer of grime to it because nothing is new.
Yeah.
No.
Nothing is new. This culture, this empire has been around for a long... Well, the Sardaukar, their shit was shiny and new looking, but that's neither here nor there. The one thing I don't recall real well from this movie, and I know was in it, were the Guild Navigators, and I remember them real well from Lynch's, but they're barely a blip in this one.
They're not... Actually, I don't think they are in this new movie. I don't think you actually see a Guild Navigator. That's one of those things he cuts out because you establish that the spice is necessary for space travel. You don't need to see the giant, mutated ape sperm man in the tank. Lynch wants to shove that in our face because he's David Lynch, and he wants to make us uncomfortable because that's the kind of filmmaker that he is.
Yep. You think this is bad? Picture Cronenberg's Dune.
There was a one Cronenberg moment in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yes.
Where those two vampire ladies are like fused together, and they're like, "Durr," when Dracula comes in, and like, ah! I saw that when I was 16, and it still grosses me out.
There's I thought going back to Stoker for a minute there, the bit where he goes and attacks what's her name? Not Winona Ryder's character, Lucy. Like that whole weird like Krynos creature thing where he's like in between transformations or something. Like I thought that was kind of Cronenberg-y as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he looks a little bit like Ted Cruz. Hey, drunk werewolf caught mid-transformation.
Womp womp.
Here's one for you, Andrew.
What?
Cronenberg's Cat in the Hat.
Whoa.
Ew. No.
Oh wait, no. You know what? They made that. It was called. What? I had something for this. It was called Videodrome. Yes, there you go.
You did the Archer move, and then you still pulled it off, Mike. Good for you. I had something for this. So we're where were we? Yeah, no guilt. That's fine. I brought up Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is all my fault. No, there's no Guild Navigators in this version. We don't see them.
Maybe in the second film.
Yeah,
maybe.
And I am so glad this film did well enough to warrant a sequel, because it would have sucked balls if we would have just gotten this. Because good as it is only halfway done, you know?
Yeah, it's only half the story. And it was a gutsy move just making it like this. You don't see that kind of risk-taking much in Hollywood anymore, because it's...
No.
Although, now that I say that out loud, like, they're very big on the concept of cinematic universes now.
Oh, sure.
So it's entirely possible that whoever greenlit this was like, oh, it'll be a cinematic universe. And there's so many stupid Dune novels and Dune prequels that they can totally make this a cinematic universe if they want to.
Maybe that's how it got greenlit, is someone was like, okay, I want this movie made. How do I trick the Hollywood dick suckers? I know. It's a cinematic universe.
It actually can be. It's literally a cinematic universe.
What buzzword is going to make them hard?
But it's also like the director, he still has a flawless record. And he was able to get like an A-list cast. So they were willing to take the risk. And guess what? It worked out.
Paid off. Yeah. That's something that George Lucas said was the problem with Hollywood anymore. He said back in the 70s, Hollywood was like a gambling house. And, they gave a director a bunch of money and said, here's some money, go double it. Alan Ladd Jr. famously said, 20th Century Fox said to George Lucas, I don't understand what you're doing at all, but you seem like a nice young man, and you've done movies for us before that have been successful. Go make your weird Flash Gordon movie.
Yeah.
If it does well, we'll make more. If it doesn't do well, I'll have this conversation with someone else next time.
Yeah.
See, this is what I don't get about Hollywood being risk-adverse when it comes to fantasy and sci-fi, because some of the earliest and oldest successes, you had your Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers serials back when you had black and white and even silent films.
Mm-hmm.
Nosferatu, the original one, German Expressionism. So it's not like these are. It confounds me. Where it's like, oh well, this is risky and not tried and true. I'm like, no, it's very tried and true. You just don't pay attention to shit, man.
It's because they're expensive to make.
They're expensive to make.
They're expensive to make, and if you make Star Wars, you make a crap load of money. If you make Enemy Mine, you don't make a crap load of money. If you make Ice Pirates, you don't make a crap load of money. So there is a risk there because they're expensive. You got to pay up front, and it's. I mean,
you're not wrong, but
you can screw this genre up, and
but you can screw up a rom-com. It just costs less money to make, unless you're going for A-list names.
Exactly, it costs less money to make. You will lose less money on a rom-com than if you try to make a sci-fi movie and it flops.
So then you make a bunch of shitty rom-coms with Matthew McConaughey and damn near tanked his career.
All right. Matthew McConaughey's just fine. He's doing just fine. Time is a flat circle, you guys. Time is a flat circle.
He was really
wild turkey whiskey.
He was really, really good in Interstellar, but not as good as I think both him and Tom Cruise were in Tropic Thunder. Those two were playing against type in that film.
I disagree. I believe that Tom Cruise's performance in Tropic Thunder is a revelation of a side of his soul that we have not seen before. That it is like Kevin Spacey in Swimming with Sharks. It is his confession.
Or he's
I
just
don't know.
impersonating his agent. Yeah.
And I don't know if we've covered Tropic Thunder yet. I don't think it's come up in maybe tangentially.
I don't
but
know.
Mayhaps one day it or movies like it ought to be covered because that's a deep dive right there.
Movies about Hollywood.
Well,
because that's kind of what it is, right? It's like Hollywood loves crawling up its own fart box and like examining itself from the inside. There's nothing they enjoy so well.
Or gems by Ben Stiller, like Zoolander. That the first one. There's always the second one, but the first one, or Dodgeball. That is
the cinematic monument that is Dodgeball. Yeah, the movie that gave us I Just Threw Up in My Mouth a Little, which has never quite left the public consciousness.
Nope. That is definitely a subject for another time.
Indeed.
Definitely. Most definitely. But Dune, the movie about the sandy planet.
The sandy planet is good. We love it. It's amazing. It's I think it just proved that you can make this movie.
You can.
Oh,
and
for sure.
It's without making it like a really complex movie, just like make the movie well. The thing that we're always talking about, just like make the pie properly.
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi movie, set up the world, show us the action, make it fun to look at. And we say that like it's easy. It's not easy to do that.
No.
Mystery Science Theater 3000 is littered with B-movie films that tried to make good sci-fi and could not do it.
Oh, no, absolutely.
That's very true.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, I had a tangent sort of going back, and this isn't my analysis. This actually came from an article that I read a few years ago. I think it was in The Atlantic, and I was actually trying to Google it here while we were talking, but I couldn't quite find it. But it was essentially the thesis of this piece was about how Titanic basically broke movies in Hollywood, and it wasn't just, and it was basically that film was sort of the jumping off point within the industry where just Hollywood wanted to just make a gazillion dollars on every picture, and they sort of talk about the other like 19 top grossing movies in 1997 when Titanic came out, and all of them were profitable.
Yeah.
Now none of them had a budget that was anywhere near Titanic, but they were all very profitable. But of course, none of them made the sheer amount of money that Titanic did.
Yeah.
And essentially, that model just completely annihilated the middle market, like the middle range, like say the $20 million, $30 million movie,
right?
Which was like the median film. Like these days, adjusting for inflation, it would probably be around like 50 million.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's why every film that comes out now is either like we made this for like $1 million with blood, sweat, and tears, which is because it's not a lot of money to like make a film these days, or it was like 100, 200, 300,000, $300 million, and it's just like it's an insane amount of money, but like it's also like super safe and by the book because they just it's designed to just like cash in from the get-go. So it's basically this article. I'll try and dig it up for you guys just as an aside, but it essentially talks about what we were just talking about, how it just completely tore the middle straight out of Hollywood movies, just in terms of like the business and how they just don't want to do middle budget films anymore because they're like, well, we could do it for really low budget, and if it does well, we're going to make so much money because it costs nothing to make, or we're going to spend so much goddamn money on this thing, it's going to make money, or we're going to hang somebody from a bridge. Like, it's like, the director's going to die if they don't make us money, so it's
I don't think film executives actually watch movies.
I don't think so either.
or understand popular culture at all.
Well, that's
Like-
what came out of the Jodowrosky film, was like when they went to do this in the 70s, and it was a case of, okay, yes, you've created this special effects thing. We like this story. We like how you've covered all the special effects in a way that's suddenly makes sense. We don't like the director. He's weird. This man is weird, and we're not giving him a lot of money. He's weird. I don't understand what he's saying. And Jodorowsky's like, no, it has to be the dream that exists in my mind. And that was never going to happen.
No.
They would have David Lynched him so hard, and he would not have been able. That movie could, even if they'd started to make it, would not have gotten made.
No.
And if it had been made, it would have been horrible.
When he had already made some pretty crazy films at that point, and
Holy Mountain.
And he was known for these, and some of those movies are still kind of infamous today. And I mean, like, to his credit, for better or for worse, like, there's really not too many other films that are anywhere near like them. Like, they're actually still kind of like some oddities in a lot of ways. I've only seen bits and pieces of his other film, like of his actual completed films.
Mm-hmm.
I've been told, like, they're kind of like alternating between like tedious and like really freaking like hard to watch.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh god, somebody filmed this. I am intensely uncomfortable now.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
You mean like that 80s rock video we watched called The Hunger?
Oh god, yeah.
That was both tedious and hard to watch.
Yeah, I guess it's probably a lot like that, isn't it? Yeah. It starts out promising, and you're like, "Oh, okay, I kind of like where we're going." That's
Midway
really
through the
Peter
film,
Murphy
like,
at the beginning there, and then you're like,
okay,
"What the
David
fuck
Bowie's
happened?"
in a
And then-
box now. What the fuck is going on? What is this film? What is this? What
film?
happened here? How did we get here? And more importantly, why are we here?
Did they just rapidly age and dehydrate, or are they just dehydrated, or are they just really like what the hell is actually happening? Are they still alive? We don't know. Yeah.
Am I still alive? I don't know.
Yeah,
What
I
is
don't know.
happening?
I'm only like 3 drinks in. Yeah, but yeah. So it's yeah.
The reason I brought that up is because, like, they were saying, like, Hollywood in the 70s, and Hollywood in the 70s was, like, at its most, like, indie auteur peak, you
Sure.
know? Even then, it was like, those guys are all accountants.
Mhm.
They're all accountants, and that's even more true today
Oh,
because film studios are not independent companies anymore.
No.
They're part of media conglomerates. Like, Sony makes movies.
Yep.
Sony makes movies now.
And game systems.
And
Yep.
game systems and movies. Like, they're like the new Ghostbusters Afterlife is, I'm pretty sure, Sony's fault. And everything I've heard about that is that it's like it's the Rogue One of Ghostbusters. It's like, do you remember this? Do you remember this? Remember the Ghost Trap? Remember Slimer? Do you remember this? It's that kind of
member
thing.
berries from
It's
South
member
Park.
berries. Everything is member berries now because that's what I was saying. Like, that's what the algorithm dictates. And so that's what, like, the accountants are like, yes. So that goes right to what you were saying, Mike, about how we will invest this much money and this much money for this, and it will be a huge profit.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and I mean, going back to your point about how even in the 70s there was a certain, I mean, it was like, yeah, sure, go nuts, kid, but, like, make sure you make the money, like, make something, make a movie that's going to sell, and, like, do your crazy, do your crazy, like, space opera or whatever, but, like, make sure we get our return on investment.
Right.
And I mean, a lot of that, like, movie advertising, a lot of that stuff, like, that was, pushing marketing, and TV ads, like trailers on TV and things like that. Like, all of that stuff evolved because of the movie industry.
Yep.
And then, then that in turn pushed, how they advertised television shows on TV, with, stingers and various things. So, I mean, like, it's this whole, like, self-replicating,
an interesting thing on how
ecosystem.
Lucas made his money on Star Wars. Lucas has made his money on Star Wars because he negotiated for a very large percentage of the merchandising, and they were like, "Oh, merchandising ain't gonna be shit." And then Kenner blew up with this toy line,
Yep.
and Star Wars this, Star Wars that, And Lucas had such a significant part of the merchandising percentage that they had to renegotiate with his ass for later films because, like, you got an awful lot of that merchandising, you know.
And it's funny you mentioned that because when after I watched Jodowrosky's Dune, I was thinking about the business of filmmaking, and when the Ghostbusters Afterlife film came out and people said what they said about it, I was sitting here thinking to myself, like, why is there even like more than one Ghostbusters movie? Why?
Right.
Why does that exist? Why? Like, it was a kind of a surprise hit in 1984, and the reason is because they figured out how to market a toy line out of it.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, I guess so.
They figured out how to market a toy line out of it.
You got a cartoon, a pretty good goddamn cartoon for that matter.
There were
And
two
it took
cartoons.
it took them a couple of years to get that cartoon going, and once they got that cartoon going, that's when the toy line started to sell. In 1984, the whole like Star Wars Strike Gold with a toy line thing, that was brand new on the ground, and no one had figured out how to replicate it. So 20th Century Fox struck gold with Star Wars. Columbia Pictures, when Ghostbusters was a hit, was like, hey, can we spin this? Because this is the 80s. Everything that was on television was a half-hour commercial for toys.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
we were all marketed to. We were all
Our
marketed to.
generation,
That's why
absolutely, yeah.
our generation was absolutely marketed to. And the results of that marketing is why there's still a Ghostbusters movie in 2021 that's really just an advertisement. You know, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't tell any part of the story. It exists because this market exists. Because the toy line exists.
I'd have to see it before I could make that statement because I've heard differing things from differing sources.
What I've heard is that it's not very funny. It's like emotional and like hits you right in the feels, which is like Ghostbusters is a comedy.
Yeah. Well, that's because the son of Ivan Reitman, his son is a different type of movie director than his father. The hallmark of his son is those in the feels family kind of gobbledygook, as it were.
What other films has he done?
Oh, fuck if I know. I'd have to look it up.
I was curious.
I have no idea.
Okay. Yeah. It's
I don't know. I mean, I'll probably see this most recent Ghostbusters movie or whatever when it's on.
It'll come out on HBO Max or Netflix or Disney.
I'll watch it when I can watch it for free, but I'm not going through
exactly.
I mean, whether it's good or not is not really relevant to me. My point is, why does it exist at all? And it exists because back in the late 80s, they figured out how to make a toy line.
Oh, no, you're right. You're
and therefore
right.
Stuck. That's why there was a Transformers series of movies 20 years after the fact. Why? Yep. Because our generation was seeded to like, oh, I will go and buy that.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I will sit and watch that. I remember Bumblebee.
Funny enough, I collect Transformers toys, and I have not a single Michael Bay versus movie toy.
Nah.
Not a single fucking one. Because toy representations, first of all, the character the design of those characters overly busy, complex, and just jarring visually in a way that would work better for a different franchise and or storyline. Maybe if you're trying to depict the Transformers as these horrifying alien menaces as opposed to something that, people can relate to. The design would work better for that. But they went overcomplicated with their personal opinion because it's something near and dear to my heart. Transformers are better when they're simpler looking, when they're blocky, colorful, and recognizable.
Yeah.
They do not work well with these overly techno-complex bullshit. One of the more successful Transformer cartoon franchises that's come out in the past decade or so was Transformers Animated. And those are very simple, blocky, basic, but very well engineered characters and toys.
Yeah, it's a cartoon. It should be a cartoon.
Yeah. Like, they could have done live action, made it work if they would have kept, because I saw the actual parts of the Bumblebee movie they put out, which have the designs much closer to the original Generation 1 stuff, and that shit looked great. I can't speak to the quality of the movie because it didn't interest me that much, because I've been burnt by live action too far.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah.
Every time I hear about a good movie that I then realize Michael Bay had a part in, I'm like, but he sucks at movies. How could this be a good movie? And it's like he sucks at certain types of movies.
Mm-hmm.
He does do some movies right. I am loath to admit, but he
It's okay.
does. It hurts me to say that.
Things exist for a reason. The man doesn't have a directing career for no reason.
No,
It's true.
No, but you're right. It's the 80s nostalgia, which
Is that ever going to be over?
probably
I don't
not,
know.
man.
Yeah, I don't know.
As long as there's products to be made and money to be made. I mean, Transformers was considered a lost franchise in the 90s and then the 2000s when they relaunched it and got a whole new generation into it. And then the kids that had watched it in the 80s were adults and had their own goddamn money.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was gonna say, like, and I think, like, in the meantime, while we became adults and we grew up, and it's like, the generation after us that is now absorbed in this media, and I think this is something that could happen easily with Dune, but I think it's also something that pretty much happens with any kind of IP, is that you're looking at like a media sort of just like environment or a media like universe. So like, yeah, there's the movie, there's going to be the TV show, there's going to be the video game, there's going to be the web series, there's going to be like all of these
The Lunchbox.
yeah
Do
yeah
they even have
the
any
animated
more
the
Lunchboxes?
animated series, and like all of this stuff, and
Everything you just said is true, and it makes my head hurt.
At least to my knowledge, there are no Transformers themed sex toys.
well, we can only hope that it stays
I
that way.
cannot say the same about Marvel or DC superheroes.
That's
However,
unsurprising. I mean,
Yeah,
with
let's
all the
talk ab-
spandex, it was going to happen. Yeah. But-
God.
I have
I mean-
seen things that I would rather I had not seen.
Speaking of body horror,
part of what I was going to say was I have to wonder if everything that came before in the 80s, where they were doing this merchandising with the plastic toys, you sort of have to wonder if it wasn't like, maybe not by design, but it's like, okay, so we've built this, we have this marketing machine, these toys are really great, but if people like this and they're picking it up, well, we can just expand. Now we have these different channels, we have these different mediums. I mean, like, Transformers comic books sold really well in the 80s, and they still sell well.
they did.
I mean, and that's just another media channel. So, I mean, what I'm saying is, like, now you just have so many different forms of media that are available to consume. Once you have a hit in pretty much any single one of these channels, you can then sort of just fan it out to the rest of them and just see how it does.
So-
and if it's a way to maximize your profits, essentially.
I'm having a thought,
Okay.
and it's both spurred on by Dune being a sci-fi futuristic movie, and something Mike was just saying about media. And I wonder what is the next form of media that does not exist that will be big.
Mm-hmm.
This is all like the precursor to the Butlerian Jihad right there. That's what I feel like we're talking about.
We were talking about being a prophet. Frank Herbert seems to have been the real prophet, all along.
Didn't make enough profit, I think, though.
He made bank, and so did his publishing company, because the publishing company he published Dune with was not even a book publishing company. They published like instruction manuals, because Herbert shopped Dune around over the place and couldn't get a publisher to bite on it. And this like publisher of instruction manuals or something like that finally was willing to put it up, and it was a massive hit and the most influential sci-fi novel of the second half of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Yep.
In terms of novels, nothing stands higher than Dune, not even Asimov.
No.
It's influential. Like, who reads the Foundation trilogy anymore? Who's going to make a movie about that? Nobody cares.
I made a miniseries. It's on Apple Plus.
Oh. All right, I stand corrected.
I mean,
I just don't like Asimov.
Not to be
He's a
pedantic
nerd.
about the whole matter, but
No, be pedantic. That's in the name. You can do it. It's fine.
yes, but if I do it, I must call it out to see how clever I am, as to doubly make my pedanticism all the much more irritating.
Pedantiception.
Is that when you're pedantic with a pendant? Yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna need more beer.
This is why Mike came armed with a bottle of whiskey.
What is that? Is that actually whiskey, Mike, that you're drinking?
Oh yeah, no, it is. It's single malt. It's actually I'll actually give them a plug because they're awesome. This is from the 10th Ward, out in Frederick.
Okay.
They're a local distiller.
Maryland whiskey.
Yeah, it's actually like really good. It's I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, I joined their bottle club, so they they're like, hey, we're charging your card, come get your booze. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good. So 4 times a year I make a little pilgrimage, and very nice.
Yeah,
That's very nice. Because it appears it has come particularly useful to you tonight.
Yeah.
I don't want to bore you guys with the details of my life, but it was today was a day.
You had a day, brother. You had a day.
You had a day. We shall, for the matters of the podcast, that be all that matter.
Yeah.
But it was actually a relatively pleasant Friday. But yeah, Dune and stuff and technology and science fiction and woo woo woo.
I was gonna say, aside from the ornithopters, I actually really love the brutalism of like the Starliners and just the how big and imposing and sort of weirdly organic they were. But it was just this weird cross section of these two. I was like, I didn't think we could actually get both of these in one starship, but they managed to do it.
I liked the still suits. I felt they were better than they were in the Lynch one.
Yeah. They looked like something that had been manufactured by people that lived there. They did not look like the bad Dracula armor painted black.
Right.
I've actually seen some 3D STL models that you can 3D print for still suits for this movie that are coming out already.
Cool.
A lot of cosplay and costuming is now done with 3D printers because you can get a pretty quick turnaround. Like if they were to make Star Wars today, I guarantee that they'd 3D print their first mold and then they'd vacuum form off of that.
Sure.
And that would work just fine. But yeah, the still suit design is gorgeous. I like the crisp blade design.
Yeah.
Well, those stood out in the Lynch movie too.
Well, and I liked the crisp blade design in this film because they really looked like they were made out of teeth from the Shai Hulud.
Yeah.
Like I dug
that was super cool.
The
Chris knives looked great. And yeah, Lynch deserves a lot of credit for his Dune film being as visually striking as it is. That's the best part of it is looking at it and the way that the things like the Dune Navigator, things like the hideousness of the Harkonnen world.
Yeah.
I think Lynch really had a lot of fun with the Harkonnen worlds and how that world was designed, and he almost didn't care about the Atreides as much.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like Caladan was a lot more present and atmospheric in this one. And the other way, the original movie was just like, oh, it's raining at night. This could very well be a scene from Clue or Rocky Horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on another planet. You sure? Because I'm not sure this is another planet.
No, Caladan definitely takes a place at the beginning of this new Dune film, and which is really important because it builds us this character, not only Paul but also his father, and we have a sense of the Atreides that we didn't really have in the Lynch film.
Like the bull's head, which was not present in the Lynch one, which I pointed out to you. I'm like, no, I wouldn't take that. That's a bad idea.
We kept talking about that because they kept going back to it, and it's a little like a Easter egg that unless you've read the novel, you don't know what it means.
Yep.
It's sort of mentioned, but not really. And in the novel, that's what killed Leto's father.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a throwaway line in the new film where it's like, and it killed Grandpa, or like that's how he died, and it was
that's
like,
how your grandfather died. The bull.
Yeah.
But here's the head of that bull up in our grand house.
And it's a symbolism, and it's something that Leto insists upon having for sentimental value and also for the symbolism of it, which is it's a memento mori.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, yes, I'm a duke, I'm a powerful man, but one day my enemy will be faster than me and I will die. And that's okay because my soul is prepared. And
I'd also like to say one thing they brought to the new Dune movie, which was woefully not present in the Lynch one, was the sense of an actual love between Jessica and Leto. Like in the first movie, I'm like, all right, she gave him a son, blah blah blah. I get, oh, he wanted it, so I'm like, okay, whatever, lady. And this one's like, you get a sense they really love each other, and yes, for this love, she would betray her order to give him that which her her mate wanted so bad. And the comment he makes, spoilers, but if you're listening to this and prepare for fucking spoilers,
seriously. We've already spoiled the entire plot of the series at this point.
In which he says, "I should have married you."
Yeah,
because Jessica was only a concubine.
Yeah, he says that in the book too. Yeah, I think.
Yep.
And
or he says it to Paul. He says, "I should have married your mother. I never believed that she was a spy. You tell her if something happens to me. I never believed she was a spy."
Right.
But you get the sense that these two people actually love each other, and that really was not present in the David Lynch one. Like, they're married,
and
they're together. You tell me that this is the Lord Duke and his consort, and this is Paul's mother. So clearly they got down, but
they're standing next to each other. Don't you see? They're mom and dad. That's as much as David Lynch cares about that.
Yeah.
But in this film, you're right. Like, they have a relationship, and that means something when Leto dies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love the way he died in this.
Yeah.
You even hear his line, like, "Here I am. Come get me. Come get me, you big fat blob. Come get me." Because even though I'm paralyzed, I'm naked in this room, I'm surrounded by your guards, but you're still scared of me, you fat piece of crap.
Yep.
Come get me. It's great.
No, it's good. It was good. I also I thought it was one thing I thought it was sort of interesting in this film. So the Harkonnens use a lot of paralytics in the book.
Yes.
There's a lot of because Harkonnen has his proclivities or whatever, where he does whatever with
whatever.
Baron Harkonnen was loved roofies. Loves them.
So but I just thought it was interesting that it's okay, so that's what Dr. Yue is subduing the guards with. It's what he subdues Leto with. And then it's how the Harkonnens are basically keeping Leto from escaping, getting away or whatever. And I was like, yeah, they do seem to use a lot of that. And that was one of those things in the book where, that was sort of ever present as far as if the Harkonnens weren't trying to outright kill someone, they were probably subjected to a paralytic unless there was another Harkonnen.
But let's just say that the roofie colada, very popular drink at Club Harkonnen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a thing that rides through, and it makes sense because what are the Harkonnens about but the subduing of life,
right?
The subduing of it, the domination of it.
Yes, and that's why the Fremen drive them batshit.
Yeah, and why they're scared of the Atreides, and they can't defeat the Atreides except with the Emperor's help, and that's. The Emperor basically has to side with them, and in the novel, Leto knows this.
Yeah,
he knows this. He knows he's being played for a fool. He steps into the trap, being like, if I move fast enough and I connect with the Fremen, I can withstand what's coming at me.
And you get that sense in the movie. This movie,
you do.
Too.
Yeah, you do. And he has this. I thought I had more time.
Yep.
Whereas with David Lynch, when you get the sense that Leto was kind of caught flat-footed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or that he was just playing it straight. That he just didn't have a plan. He was just like, okay, well, I'm the Duke of Arrakis now. Gonna go land some spice. Crap, I'm dead. Yeah.
Duke.
Who's that guy? That's the Duke. Oh wow, does he seriously just walk around and go Duke all day? Brother, I've been working here my whole life. Yes. Yeah.
How can you tell he's the Duke? Oh, he's not the only one. He's the only one not covered in sand.
There you go. Duka Muad'Dib Jihad, right?
Duke. I wonder if the Duke, if that Duke Atreides had like the Duke song, like I had the No song. Okay, the No
What?
song. Okay, yes, it's a Kieran tangent. Here we go. So
Strap
back in the day, and this is like this is around the time that me and Mike made our first acquaintance. So this is like a couple years of me meeting the man. I was dating this young lady, which is a charitable statement. Who
A
was
charitable statement in what way? Was she not young? Was she not a lady? what's
I'll get
going
to
on?
that.
Okay.
Who could be rather imperious with her requests, phrasing them in such a manner that seemed less like a request and more like a demand.
Okay.
Well, I'm a contrary son of a bitch. No duh.
Yes.
And so one day she asked me something that I could have said yes to easily, but I didn't like how she asked it. So I jumped up on the table of my best friend's house and did an entire song and dance number that consisted of the word no. I was like, no, 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 no. And Mike got to hear about this secondhand. He cracked the fuck up at the time because
Apparently,
he
he
had
tap
met her.
dancing. I don't know, but like, yeah,
He had met her, and he could see how that would have gone over.
yeah.
It did not go over very well, by the way. And there were probably more politic ways of handling that young lady, but none more satisfying. That was very emotionally satisfying.
Sometimes you have to tap dance on a table and tell someone no.
Yes.
Sometimes that's where you are.
And that is the origin of the no song. My wife knows of this. She has not experienced it, but she knows it's a thing. She's like, wait, is this going to become one of those no song situations? Like, oh no, honey. It's not.
You're not gonna no song on me, are you? No, we're not there yet. It's
No,
fine,
no. Oh Lord. So
I mean,
yes,
I'm light enough. Most of our tables here will gladly support my weight for that situation.
sure.
But I'm not so spry as to be able to do the dance number as well. And my wife is dangerous, so I kind of like, and knows where I sleep, I kind of like to not incur that level of wrath.
Reasonable. You don't want to break a table or yourself.
One is more likely than the other.
Mm-hmm. So let's just answer your question, Kieran. Say yes, that's totally going on in Duke Leto's head, at least in the Lynch film.
In the Lynch film, he's like
duking along, duking away. But no, Leto Atreides is definitely more of a character in the Dune film, and that feeds the. That's one of the understated leitmotifs in the novel, is how Paul feels the death of his father.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you don't. It kind of gets shoved under the sand until the very end of the novel, when everything's over and everything's fine, everything's triumphant, and Paul is like, "That's Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen. That's a Harkonnen. He's a Harkonnen. You have a Harkonnen with you. You, me, now.
Yep.
Because you're your uncle's nephew, and I'm my father's son, and we ain't done till I say it's done."
And that is actually
one of us is going to die on this floor.
And that is a very realistic portrayal of grief and death, especially the loss of a loved one. Sometimes, especially when you're in, especially someone you love dies, but you're in life and death situation, you don't have the luxury of grieving properly. But then when it's all said and done, then it hits you.
Yeah, sure. You read that novel and it's like, you don't have to do this. And everyone's like, you don't have to do this. We already won. You don't have to do like, no, I have to do this.
Yep.
I might be Muad'Dib, I might be the new emperor, but I'm still Paul Atreides, and that's a Harkonnen.
And fuck those guys.
Yep. Him.
Fuck those guys specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if I don't say fuck someone for the rest of my existence, still fuck them Harkonnen. And I think the payoff for that in the second Dune film we'll get is going to hit harder, because in this one you get more the sense of Leto as a person, as a important emotional weight for Paul. Yeah.
So I think that will pay off nicely. At least I'm hoping so.
Absolutely. I don't know who they're going to get to play.
Fade Ralph? Yeah, I don't know.
Sting is too old.
Sting is too old. I don't want to see him in that weird leather fin diaper again.
He definitely tamps down on the pure weirdness of the Harkonnens without really tamping down their menace. They're still menacing. Yeah. Like the Baron in this movie, in the new Dune, is not like flying around in a still suit or whatever they call those things, spinning around screaming about shit. He doesn't have like gross pustules all over his face. He's not spitting on people or pulling their hearts out all the time. He's just covered in black sludge, and he looks like a demon.
Yes,
he looks like a Shinto demon or something like that.
Yeah, like
you know what I mean?
He exudes menace.
Yeah.
But whereas the first Harkonnen exuded vileness, this guy exudes danger. You know, it's like.
Well, and he was very shrewd in the book, and you get a sense of that sort of intelligent menace in the portrayal that Skarsgard is doing.
That's right. It is Skarsgard. He's great.
Skarsgard is a hell of a good actor.
He's fantastic.
So, you know who they could get to play Fade Rutha?
Tell us.
Eric Skarsgard. Is that like related to him, right?
Another Skarsgard?
Another Skarsgard. He's like he played a blonde model in Zoolander. He played a vampire in True Blood.
Okay.
Eric Skarsgard. They're related, I believe.
Okay.
And I think he could probably do, if he isn't already. He might be Bill Skarsgard's son. Don't quote me on that. I think they are directly lineally related, but I cannot remember the actual facts on that.
Fade Ralpha is the heir to House Harkonnen.
Yeah, and this guy looks like Skarsgård, obviously, but younger and far more attractive.
And he's in the book. Fade is the younger brother of Rabban.
Yeah. Okay, you're never gonna buy that he's related to fucking Batista, but
Rabban is a muscle-minded tank brain.
Yeah,
and the Baron has no intention of making him heir, and he knows that. Fade Ralpha is the heir.
Yeah,
and Fade Ralpha is a schemy little punk as well.
Which I believe that Eric. I believe is his name Eric Skarsgård. I think it's Eric Skarsgård. That may just be the name of his character from fucking True Blood. I'm gonna be honest. I cannot remember.
I'm googling this. Eric Skarsgård. Too many.
It doesn't look like they've cast Fade yet, or if they have, it hasn't been announced. I couldn't find it.
That's just my personal thought of what would work well. Just because the dude's got good acting chops.
There's an Alexander Skarsgård.
There we go, Alexander Skarsgård, blonde dude.
Yes, blonde dude. He was in Tarzan.
Yeah, he played a character named Eric. I'm sorry.
He was in Tarzan, Battleship. He was in Generation Kill. He was in Zoolander, Godzilla vs. Kong.
Didn't know that, but haven't seen it.
He's in the mini series of The Stand.
So you see what he looks like. I assume they give a picture.
He's only a few months older than me.
Oh, okay, cool.
He was born in August of 1976. He's also 45.
Doesn't look it.
No, well, you might know. Neither do I, is what I'm told.
And especially Mr. Michael here does not look his age.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Mike's only 29. What are we talking about?
Dude, I got a picture of you. I got a picture
This is why we are friends. No.
I got a picture of you from when I had an iPhone 3G that I took back then, and you do not look significantly different, if at all.
No, well, I mean, I do dye my hair.
I showed it. This is my friend. This is my friend Mike. Like, oh yeah, I know him. I said, yeah, you have no idea how old this picture is. Like the picture's over a decade old. All right,
okay. It's cool.
I mean, Mike, I've known you for like 10 years. You haven't aged a whole lot.
No,
I try.
I've known you for 20.
Try to maintain
over 20.
But
one does what one has to do to maintain one's.
You've actually lost weight since I met you.
Yeah, that's true. I was heavier when you met me.
But then
for
again,
various
so have I.
reasons.
So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, so I think it's safe to say that we're all looking forward to part 2.
Yes.
The next Dune film. I will definitely be.
Yes, I'm as excited as I was when I first saw the trailer.
yeah.
I'm hoping by then I can actually go and see part 2 like in a theater.
Let's try to IMAX it.
Yeah,
Yes.
October like 2023. I'm totally there.
I'm up for that. I'm
Yeah,
up for
that'd
that.
be
We should. The three of us should go IMAX it because that would be fucking glorious.
It would.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
sound system would
Oh,
be good.
maybe we can find one of those deals where it's a double fucking feature.
That could be fun.
That could be fun. Time
I like
consuming.
where your head's at with that.
I would go for that. Yeah.
I'm willing to bet they'll do it too.
Dune it up, double
Yeah.
Dune,
Why
all
not?
the
Double
Dune.
Dune it. Dune squared. This time it's personal.
They'll totally call it that. They'll totally go like Dune squared.
Dune
This is
2.
from
Electric
Dune Part
Boogaloo.
2.
Dune: The Return.
It'll be Dune Part 2, and if you see them together, it'll be Dune squared. There's going to be the Dunening. There's going to be Reddit threads devoted to this for the next couple of years. I can read them now.
I tell you. Which means that the Dune podcast will have a part 2 as well.
It will.
Yes.
What should we call this one?
I thought we came up with a couple of ideas when we were watching.
Yeah,
Dune,
but I don't remember them.
and I didn't write them down.
Yeah.
We'll make up something clever and pithy as we usually do.
Yeah, I'm when I
Stellar
posted to the,
Pandemic, Dune and Loving It. I don't know. No.
Fear and
A
Loathing in
riff on our
Arrakis?
Dracula. Yeah. Fear and Loathing in Arrakis. Yeah.
No, it's Dune and Loving It. I'm posting it to the Patreon under that name, Dune and Loving It.
A riff on our Dracula tangent from earlier. I don't know. But
And the
Exactly.
second one could be Dune 2 Judgment Sand. I don't know.
Oh,
Or Dune 2 Spice World.
oh, why would you do that?
Why do I do anything?
Been
Because
through
it
the
hurts you,
desert on
and I'm
a
going to
road
keep
no
on
name.
hurting you.
Let me lay some spittle in your face.
From hell's depths I stab at thee. I would like to say that one day we are going to have to cover the Wrath of Khan because Ricardo Montalban eats up the scenery like his ass is starving.
We could have a whole podcast episode about Star Trek movies.
Yeah, actually,
We could
do that.
could dip our toe into Star Trek because none of us, I get the vibe, are actual Trekkies.
Not
So
really.
we can talk about Star Trek without being absolute nerds about it.
No, I am descended from Trekkies because my parents used to take me to Star Trek conventions when I was like 6, and then my dad would disappear for hours, and I didn't know why. Now as an adult, I fully know what he was up to, but as a 6-year-old child, like, Dad's just going off and having fun at this convention with space weirdos. Oh, he was having fun, all right.
Well, now. Let's not be
Yeah.
telling tales out of school or out of sci-fi conventions, which is pretty much the same as
I
school.
can neither confirm nor deny. I only have my suspicions.
Fair enough.
Fair.
All right. So I feel like the Dune section of this conversation is winding down,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it
That's
has.
good.
sandworming away.
But I think we should probably stick a pin in this and call it a done deezy.
Oh, most deaf.
Yes.
All right, that's fine. So this has been the shallow and pedantic, long-promised, long Lisan al-Gaib Dune episode, the voice from the outer world. I'm Andrew.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Kieran. Hide your disappointment.
Check us out on Content Blues, folks. Have a good one.